At 9:14 p.m., the smartest building in Manhattan began to die from the top down. It started on the 80th floor. A single automated command routed through the building's central operating system cut power to the executive suite, killed the primary ventilation, and engaged the emergency security seals. Marcus Vance didn't know it yet, but he was legally and physically trapped inside an 800-foot cage of his own making. This wasn't a cyber attack. Nobody hacked the building. The Skyscraper's automated operating system was simply executing its programming to the exact letter, and Vance was about to watch his entire life's fortune bleed out before the backup generators could even kick in. This is the exact forensic breakdown of how a multi-billionaire real estate empire was hijacked from the inside out, and why every single attempt to save it only made the trap tighter. To understand how an 80-story pillar of Manhattan real estate can be turned into a concrete vault, you have to look at the wreckage left behind just 3 weeks prior. Following the sudden automated liquidation of Vance Capital Group, Marcus Vance was facing an immediate catastrophic liquidity crisis. He didn't need assets. He needed cash to pacify his board, and he needed it within 72 hours. To default meant losing control of the board entirely. His solution was a modern financial miracle: tokenization. Vance functionalized the equity of his crown jewel, Vance Tower, into 10,000 digital regulatory shares, selling them off to offshore institutional buyers. He kept the physical deed, but to sweeten the deal for risk-averse investors, he tied the building's operating budget, rent collection, and maintenance protocols directly to an automated, decentralized ledger. It removed human management completely, ensuring investors got paid instantly. On paper, it was flawless efficiency. In reality, it was a multi-billion-dollar vulnerability waiting for the right predator. Enter Apex Sentinel, a vulture private equity fund specializing in predatory distress acquisition. They didn't employ hackers. They employed corporate forensic lawyers, network cartographers, and social engineers who mapped out Vance's internal hierarchy over months. The heist didn't begin with a brute force breach of the building's firewall. It began at 4:15 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, the absolute blind spot of corporate security, with a cascading chain of entirely ordinary human errors. First, an entry-level compliance officer received an urgent, hyper-realistic deepfake audio call from what sounded like Vance's chief legal officer, demanding an immediate security audit pass for an incoming European investor holding a massive block of shares. Second, that call pressured the stress officer into authorizing a single, temporary session token. It was a minor procedural infraction, meant to be valid for only 20 minutes. Third, that single token allowed Apex Sentinel to quietly compromise an administrator account belonging to a vacationing facility manager. No alarms were tripped, no firewalls flagged an intrusion, because the credentials used were entirely legitimate. By 6 p.m., while the rest of the executive board was rushing out of the office for the weekend, a final, high-panic administrative notification hit the acting director's screen. The alert warned of a synchronization error in the token ledger, believing it was part of the ongoing pre-approved compliance audit mentioned in the memo. The director clicked approve. With that single click, the trap was set. Apex Sentinel hadn't rewritten a single line of code. They hadn't written a virus. They had simply walked through the front door using the building's own security keys. At 9:15 p.m., Apex Sentinel triggered the trap. Using their legitimate admin access, they didn't steal data. They uploaded. They input a falsified chemical and structural telemetry report into the core environmental system, simulating a severe, rapid foundation compromise on the lower subterranean levels. The building's operating system behaved exactly as it was designed to. It didn't question the authenticity of the building. It was programmed to trust administrative input. It instantly executed Protocol 9, Safe Harbor Isolation. On the lower floors, chaos was immediate but orderly. Turnstiles rejected incoming badges. Elevators automatically descended to the lobby, discharged their passengers, and deactivated. Over 3,000 data analysts, hedge fund traders, and security personnel guided themselves out into the cold Manhattan night. As the lights flickered floor by floor, the building's HVAC system shut down to prevent the spread of imaginary airborne toxins. The temperature inside the seal tower began to steadily rise. But while the lower floors were being cleared for public safety, the system treated the executive penthouse as an isolated quarantine zone to protect the lower network stacks. It locked Marcus Vance in, and as his entire workforce abandoned the sinking ship below, the automation executed the second and most lethal phase of Protocol 9. By contract, during an active structural emergency, 100% of the building's tokenized rental cash flow was instantly, automatically diverted away from Marcus Vance's operating accounts. It was rerouted into an emergency remediation escrow, a fund legally designed to pay for immediate automated structural fixes to protect investor equity. A fund now controlled entirely by the authorized third-party trustee on the contract ledger Apex Sentinel. By 9:30 p.m., Vance managed to bypass the block network towers using an encrypted satellite uplink to reach his lead corporate counsel at their homes. Marcus, do not touch the hardware. Do not let anyone pull those servers down manually. If you break that loop, we lose everything. Vance demanded his legal team physically cut the backup power grid or secure an immediate midnight emergency court injunction to override the protocol. But the corporate law in an automated era doesn't move at the speed of a hard reset. His legal team delivered the fatal reality. The tokenization contract contained an explicit ironclad cross-default clause. If Vance or any human agent acting on his behalf manually cut the power, smashed the servers, or forced the security doors open during a system flag safety emergency, the system would categorize the action as a bad faith breach of corporate governance. The cost of fighting back was immediate self-destruction. A manual override would trigger automatic, irreversible liquidations across his remaining offshore entities, instantly vaporizing his remaining collateral and handing over full control of the physical deed to the shareholders. He wasn't helpless because he lacked power. He was trapped because the system had made compliance the only survivable option. The automation didn't need to keep him locked forever. It only needed to buy Apex Sentinel for exactly 90 minutes. At 10:45 p.m., the structural emergency flag was systematically cleared. The air conditioning kicked back on the white whistle, cooling the stifling office. The security seals are disengaged, the cage open. Good evening, Marcus. I trust the climate control is functioning properly again. The call came from a senior partner at Apex Sentinel. They didn't want to buy his building, and they didn't want to negotiate. They didn't even want his surrender. They had already accomplished everything they set out to do while the tower was dark. During the 90-minute lockdown, as panic spread and rumors of the critical foundation fall, Advanced Tower leaked to the institutional trading desks, the value of Vance tokenized secondary shares cratered by 85% on the open exchanges. While Marcus was pacing his suffocating office, Apex Sentinel's automated trading algorithms were on the open market, buying up those panic defaulting shares for pennies on the dollar. Marcus Vance walked out of his penthouse a free man. He still legally owned the physical concrete, the steel, and the glass of Vance Tower, but the empire inside it had been completely hollowed out. The rental cash flows were drained into escrow. His minority partners were forced into default and bought out, and his core corporate tendency was compromised. The system hadn't glitched, it hadn't broken a single financial regulation, and it hadn't made a mistake. It ran exactly as it was programmed to run.